Stuart, can you tell us a little bit more about this very impressive plaster of Canova?
So, well, Canova, Antonio Canova, is the greatest neoclassical sculptor that lived. He's Italian, spent a lot of his time in Rome, and in fact have had an incredibly impressive studio, which was more or less a kind of tourist spot for people. So all the grand tourists visiting, all these lords and ladies coming from England and Germany would come to Rome, and they would always pay a visit to his studio. And so he always had great examples of his work ongoing in there. So it was a very fashionable thing to do. But besides that, he was a great sculptor, and he was patronized by some of the great leading families in Europe of the time. This bust, however, was a very personal bust for Canova, because it represents a very close friend of his, who was also an artist, a painter, another neoclassical painter called Giuseppe Bossi. Bossi was from Milan. He was a good painter, but he was also very famous because he helped to set up what is now the Brera Gallery in Milan, which is one of the great museums in Milan. He was a great collector himself. He had over 3,000 works of art. And when he died, there was a cenotaph, a memorial being made, which was set up in the museum, the Brera. And Canova was asked to carve a portrait bust of him, which is what he did, and this is it. And the piece that's in the Brera itself is a marble on this scale. And then in his studio, Canova made a number of plaster versions of it. So it was a cast that was produced from his model. And often these things were made for friends, so they would be given as a sort of a memento to other people who were also friends with Bossi. Sometimes if he was making a commission, he would take a long time to make a marble, to carve a marble, and the person the lord who was commissioning him would get very annoyed, so he would send a plaster version of it put in place to keep them happy for a while. But this one is actually a very personal a memento for that friend. And in fact, as we turn it around, there's this wonderful inscription on the back, which appears on the marble too, which is describing how much he respected Bossi as a painter, and he was a great friend, and this is a dedication to him. And this piece was made by Canova in 1816, so just a year after Bossi dies.
Do you think that it is some kind of a homage that he gave to his friend, or some kind of a metaphor about his friend and himself in the same time?
Yes, exactly. He's portraying this sense of a great artist upon his friend, as well as he of course was fated, Canova, and he had great accolades in his lifetime. So he's making that kind of respect, that homage, as you say, to his friend Bossi also. In fact, there is a portrait that Canova made himself, of a self-portrait, that looks very similar to this. I mean, Bossi has these sideburns, the hair on the side of his face, so it makes him more particular, but is actually fashioned quite closely to his self-portrait. And there's also a portrait of Napoleon, which is also very similar. And the fact that he's put it on this scale emulates the antique world, when you have these very large-scale portrait busts of emperors or imperial figures. So he's using that reference to the antique world to also give the sitter and the sculpture itself a kind of grand stature, and that link with the ancient civilization.